What if the secret to running faster and running further wasn't about working harder, but instead about working smarter and especially understanding these two major opposing forces in our bodies? My name is Jeff with Endurance Awakened, here to help you discover your inner strength and lead a more powerful life through fitness. And today we are talking about two major energy systems in our bodies, what they are, how they work, and what you can do specifically to implement some strategies into your training to get faster and run further. And if you stick around until the end, I'm going to share with you a very powerful tool that you can implement today to assess your current level of fitness. These two powerful systems are called the aerobic system and the anaerobic system. Now, you've probably heard of these before. However, I want to give you some analogy and something to work off of to have them make more sense to you. Simply stated, think of aerobic workers and anaerobic workers. The aerobic workers work slow and steady and can work all day long with limited to no breaks to finish the task. The anaerobic worker, on the other hand, works really fast and needs multiple breaks along the way to achieve the same result. So independently of one another, they are opposing forces. However, when you put these two together, you have a completely rounded approach to fitness and especially endurance. Think of things like yin and yang or the terminals on a battery. They're both independent of one another and are completely opposing forces, but when you put them together, they become a very powerful combination. Now, how does the aerobic system and the anaerobic system translate as to what is going on inside of our bodies when we're exercising? The aerobic system uses fat as the major source of fuel and generates energy as a result of using oxygen. And fat burns in the presence of oxygen. So when we're using a lot of oxygen, we're burning fat as the main source of fuel, which allows us to prolong our activity for longer periods of time. So if part of your training and your fitness journey involves losing fat, you're going to want to spend the majority of your time, especially at the beginning of your training, in the aerobic zone. Anaerobic, on the other hand, uses carbohydrates and sugars as the main source of fuel and generates energy without oxygen. Now, of course, there can't be no oxygen whatsoever, or we would be dead. However, the amount of oxygen used in relation to the aerobic system is very, very minimal. Keep in mind the rapid breakdown of carbohydrates into energy produces a chemical called lactate. And if you've ever gotten cramps or muscle fatigue, that's what's going on. There's a high buildup of lactate. So training in the anaerobic zone also teaches us how to work with the amount of lactate that builds up. You've probably heard of it as lactic acid as well. And again, that's what causes the cramps and muscle soreness. This is why we can only use the anaerobic system sparingly in relation to our aerobic system. So we're going to be using a lot more of our aerobic system in training than anaerobic system. So simply stated, the aerobic system is slow and sustainable, which is suitable for longer distance runs and endurance training. Now, the anaerobic system, on the other hand, is fast, it's short-lived, and it's suitable for power. So things such as sprints towards the end of a race, heavy carries, uphill, all of these things are going to really tap into the anaerobic system. As you can see, both systems operate under different conditions. However, they overlap at the same time, especially in the case of a race. All right, now that you understand what these systems are, I want to explain to you why it's important that you understand how they work. And then I'm going to share with you exactly what you can do to implement strategies with aerobic and anaerobic work to get the most out of your workouts and to get faster and to be able to run further. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're all looking to do, right? All right, the first reason is targeted training. Knowing which system is working and when allows you to put your training programs together to make them most effective and, more importantly, to avoid injury. This targeted training is going to allow you to put your day-to-day training blocks together that aren't going to cause too much stress on the body, but also aren't going to make it too easy for you. Understanding these two systems allows for a nice targeted balance in your training. The second reason is improved performance. By understanding how these systems work individually and collectively, going to know how you can factor these in during your training, how you're feeling, where is your heart rate, are you aerobic, are you anaerobic, and understanding how you specifically put that together for your overall plan. The third reason, and I mentioned this before, is injury prevention. Overemphasis on the anaerobic system, especially early in the training, puts a lot of undue stress on the body, especially when the aerobic system and the aerobic engine hasn't been built up to accommodate the extra work that goes into putting work in the anaerobic system. Understanding this is going to help you with structure and especially with recovery. Next is energy management. Understanding how to utilize these two systems individually and collectively during your races is going to help significantly when it comes to overall time. It's really important to know when to turn it on and when to conserve energy in a race, especially when you're dealing with trails and hills and heavy carries. And lastly, it's important to understand these for customized goals. Because if your goal is to run long distance, you're going to want to spend the majority of your time training aerobically, building that big aerobic engine so you can go slow and steady for longer periods of time. If you're doing other races such as sprints, even something like a 5K where that heart rate is going to be up high for maybe 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes, depending on what the race is, you're going to have to know how to customize your goals around what your race goals are. All right, now that we've gone over why it's important and how these two systems work, I want to show you a few things that you can do right away. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm going to share with you a free resource and a guide for you to start implementing these things right away. First thing you should do, start building your aerobic base. Schedule in your slow runs, going up maybe 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. You may also know these as zone 1 and zone 2. Aim for 3 to 4 sessions a week if you're into your training. If you're just getting started, you may want to just start with once to twice a week for a few weeks, evaluate, see how you're feeling, and eventually work up to 3 to 4 times a week. Gradually increase the distance by about 10% each week, depending on how you feel, and make sure that you keep it sustainable and don't overdo it. The benefit to this is you're going to increase your endurance, you're going to build efficiency in your running, and you're going to build that aerobic base, which is the foundation of any training program. Number 2 is to incorporate anaerobic training sessions. And I will say limitedly. Think of the 80-20 rule. 80% of your training should be aerobic-based training and 20% should be anaerobic. And the way that you do this is by adding in short bursts of speed. They can be on flat ground, they can be on hills, followed up by a significant amount of rest before starting the next one. 30 seconds to 2 minutes maximum. Start off with 1 to 2 sessions a week. 1 if you're just getting started, 2 if you're already in some training and you're feeling pretty good. And as always, make sure you are monitoring your progress. You're taking notes on how you felt. The benefit here is that it's going to build speed, it's going to build power, and you're going to be a lot faster. The third thing you can do is combine these two systems for tempo runs. And these are simply running at a medium to hard pace for anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, starting off with an aerobic warm-up and then getting right into it for 20 to 30 minutes. Heart rate anywhere from 80 to 90% of max heart rate. Yes, it's high, and yes, you're going to be pushing it. I would recommend once a week at most for those of us who are into our training. And I would wait for at least a month if you're just getting started to implement this high intensity training with tempos. Because the last thing you want to do is become injured or become injury prone because we've pushed too hard too soon. And I know this from personal experience as I've had a number of injuries that have all occurred at the beginning stages of a training program. The benefit here is you're going to build your anaerobic threshold. You're going to be able to hold faster times for longer periods of time, which is going to come into play in all kinds of conditions, especially towards the end of races or in the middle of races where others are starting to slow down and you're prepared to push the pace. The fourth thing here is strength training. Now, I know in recent years, this has become more of a hot topic in the running world, and strength is the foundation and the pillar of being able to run faster. Strength training can either be body weight exercises if you're just getting started, or if you're somebody that goes to the gym, is to really be focusing on the strength as part of your running. 2 to 3 times a week, and on days, especially if you've run that day, on days that are shorter runs, those tempo or those interval runs. Don't be getting into the gym after a 60 or a 90-minute aerobic run. Our bodies need to recover adequately before we throw on strength training. The benefit here is going to strengthen muscles, strengthen joints, ligaments, tendons, all of the connective tissue. You're going to look better, you're going to feel better, and most importantly, you're going to be less injury prone. The fifth thing that you can do, and it may be the most important of all, is being able to monitor your recovery. And what this means is you'll be able to balance out your aerobic workouts and your anaerobic workouts to know how you're feeling after these and what type of recovery do you need. Monitoring recovery prevents overtraining. It also allows the body to adapt to certain stimuli and pressures that are put upon it to adapt and to become faster and to become stronger. But it takes those adaptation periods and monitoring the recovery to make sure we're doing it the right way. The last thing that I'll go over right now that you can do, and there are plenty more, is to use a heart rate monitor. It doesn't matter if you're using one on your wrist, a chest strap, an arm strap. The most important thing is that you're using the same device because we want to stay consistent. You don't want to use like an Apple Watch one time and then a Garmin and then a Fitbit, and then you just don't want to do that because you're getting potentially conflicting data. Use the same device and make sure that you're monitoring it, you're charging it, and you're keeping track of what it looks like on your watch or on your device that's monitoring your heart rate. This is going to ensure that you train each system effectively, you're taking the time off when you need to, you're pushing it when you can, and you're taking your foot off the gas when you need to. By implementing these steps into your training plan, you're going to improve speed, you're going to improve strength, force, power, and you're going to lessen the event of getting injured. You're less injury prone, as we would say. All right, we have gone over a lot of information in this video, and I'm very thankful that you stayed around here till the end because I did promise you that I was going to share a very important tool that you can use right now. You can start with this today to measure your current level of fitness. Down below, I've included a free ebook for you that's going to go over aerobic training, anaerobic training, a lot of what we talked about today, and also give you an aerobic time trial template. You're going to be able to put this into effect now to go out and go for a run and know exactly where your level of aerobic fitness lays today. You can then take the exact same framework and strategy and do it a month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, anytime into the future. And you're going to be able to see not only if you've progressed, but exactly how much and in what areas. So make sure and go down into the description down below and download the ebook. It's totally free. Put it into effect. And until next time, see ya.